Okay, so Jordan, I got a question for you here. That's something important to ask you.
Yep.
Are you going to be joining Hive or Mastodon or any of these alternatives that are popping up to Twitter? People are jumping ship. Are you?
No.
No?
No. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a Hive just to see what it was like, and it looks like it sucks. Mastodon looks like it sucks. Like, these are just like, Mastodon specifically just looks like a glorified Discord server.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's the thing. I already have a Discord server.
Oh, you want to plug it?
Not really. No, I don't want the listeners of this show joining that.
All right, but yeah, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all decentralized. Like, you have to join a wait list to join. Yeah. Like, I don't want to deal with it.
I feel like you need like an engineering degree to get an account there. It seems very complex, you know? I love that they're called toots. That is, yeah.
The
like, come on
toots,
now. What are we doing here?
Retoot, I think.
Yeah.
Or boost toots.
Hey, can you boost my toot? Because I got an important...
Please boost my toot, sir.
Please, sir. My toot. It needs to be boosted. Yeah, I don't think so either. I'm going down with the ship. You know, I've talked about Twitter and how I simultaneously enjoy it and think that it's terrible for both myself and my mental health and society and society's health. But I'm going down with the ship, you know. It took me 10 years to build up, you know, whatever 90,000 followers on Twitter. I had to do all kinds of crazy shit, spread misinformation and put myself through all kinds of nonsense to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm not spending another 10 years on Mastodon, you know, trying to recreate the same thing. It's not going to happen. If Twitter does go away, I will be on, you know, Twitch. I'll be on Discord. I'm not going to start building up a new thing.
Yeah. I'm not into it. Like, I'm not even on TikTok. I know you're a TikToker. I'm not on TikTok.
I haven't made a TikTok in like 2 years. Like, I should use it more.
You soured on it, huh?
Yeah. That's right.
What happened?
It just became too mainstream, man.
Bummed.
I liked it before it was cool.
You got bummed when you didn't get into the hype house?
I was, yeah. I was rejected from the leftist hype house, and I found it very insulting.
Oh,
they didn't
I'm so sorry.
recognize my influencer status.
You're kidding me.
I know. As a fellow young person as well, you know?
Yeah.
I'm hip.
Dude, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's frustrating. Maybe I will start doing more of those if Twitter goes away, but that's a maybe. I don't know. But
okay.
Just to completely contradict what I just said, but...
Yeah, of course. Dude, None of it seems appealing, and I think all these concerns are overblown. Like, about the health of the platform, like, structurally, I just don't see it collapsing.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It seems like he's honestly just got a bunch of, like, people who are there against their will because they're on visas, which is bad, but, like, the site's not going to implode like everyone thought it was going to or claimed it was going to. It seemed like a bit hysterical. I'm not, like, super worried about the health of the platform. I think it sucks that he's bringing all these fucking freaks back, but I'm not, like, super
just like a who's who of, like, the fucking weirdest Gamergate slur saying fucking losers.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it's pretty sad stuff. But yeah, and it's amazing just the whole, like, business genius mindset of sending an email to people and being like, I've displayed that I can fire you at any time for any reason. Now, here's what you can do is you can stay in the company and not have any kind of life, work insanely long hours. He's cutting all their benefits, or you can take this 3-month severance package. And it's like, lo and behold, many people are choosing to just get out of there and take the severance. And it's like, I can't believe this has happened. But this is the business genius mindset that we just can't comprehend.
It is, yeah.
And you're seeing this huge corresponding drop in Tesla stock. Like, Tesla has lost like $500 billion in value, in stock value, since he purchased Twitter. Like, it's truly stunning. The levels of ineptitude that we're seeing. You almost have to respect it.
Almost.
Yeah, I don't.
Almost.
But
right.
Almost. Yeah.
But you're not joining either.
I don't think so. No, I mean, I made a Mastodon account a couple years ago, but I just don't see myself migrating to a new platform. No.
Yes.
Like a Twitter clone, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Honestly, like the only other platform that I use is like Substack for like this, and then my Substack.
Yeah.
And then I stream on TYT's Twitch, which like whatever, it's just a thing. I'm good, man.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I got enough social media. More like anti-social media is what they should call it. Has anyone ever tried that before? I just invented that.
No, that's new.
That's a brand new turn of phrase. So it's the Insurgents episode number 127, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Our guest today is Dharna Noor, who's a climate reporter. She's been on the show a couple times before. She's with the Boston Globe. Excellent conversation with Dharna, who's able to kind of get into the specifics of climate policy in the way that Jordan and I are kind of not familiar with. Talking about the latest, it's COP27, right? The one that's going on right now?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, it just ended.
Yes, as well as the historic Biden administration climate change legislation. Of course, we got into the details of all of that, and the handful of kind of positive things we can take a look at, and as well a lot of depressing shit. And there was also some fun chit chat at the end there, so we left people feeling happy and satisfied for once, rather than feeling like they wanted to just like go into a dark room and lie down and feel bad about themselves and the world. It's this new direction that we're trying, this radical new direction that we're trying in the Insurgents 2.0. The brand new rebrand, very exciting. If you don't know, folks, we're moving up to 2 episodes per week now, which was always actually the plan doing this podcast. But as soon as we started to do it, there was this global pandemic and a big crisis and a lot of shit was going on that made it kind of difficult or next to impossible. But we are moving up to 2 episodes per week, 1 free episode and 1 bonus episode. So please subscribe to the Insurgents podcast if you want to get all this incredible content. You can become a paid intern of the Insurgents podcast for $5 per month or $55. It never doesn't pop you that. Or it's $5 per month or $55 annually to get access to the bonus content. Like our previous episode with Tom from the Hardcore Band Straight from the Path.
That's right. Tom was on this week. It was a ton of fun. We talked about gambling. We talked about, because his stories.
He's got some good ones. He's got some crazy gambling stories. It's wild.
The one about the shotgun. Like, I'm not gonna spoil it. People will need to listen to it. But like, wild. Like Joker origin story for a guy who loves to gamble. It's so nuts. And then, like, we got into Stray's music and their political bent and hardcore. The music industry, which has been a big topic this week and last week after, like, the Ticketmaster antitrust investigation. And at the end, we revisited some of our old favorite hardcore bands, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, great episode.
Yeah, great episode. And not only that, you get access to all of our premium episodes. You become, like Rob said, a paid intern, and you help support the show and keep it going, which we really, really appreciate your support on that front. On the paid intern thing, like the tweets that we get of people like leaning into the bit are great. We got one a couple days ago that it cracked me up. I hate when Ken walks by the intern area. He is just so flippant about avoiding his band now. Jordan and Rob need to do something.
We should.
Someone else said, my paid internship at Insurgents Pod is going well. Haven't been asked to work hardcore in over 3 days. Should be able to see my family again soon. Just wish I didn't have to see Ken in the hallways. I love it. So if you're a paid intern, you are allowed to lean into the bit. If you're not, you're stealing valor.
Absolutely.
But
you are.
Did you see that tweet the other day? The guy who tweets news clips and it's like, I'm brave. And so he like got mad at someone else for tweeting the same clip without crediting him, even though neither of them like own the TV station.
No,
like they were both tweeting out like a Trump clip from Newsmax, and they're just like the TV clip Twitter account guys, and they're like fighting over like who should get credit for this clip that neither of them own. And then he replied, well, the main guy, what you're doing is stealing valor. And all these people like blown away. Like, did you really just compare yourself to some like military veteran? You're stealing valor from my TV clip. You didn't see this?
No, I didn't. I thankfully did not, because it sounds painful to look at and to think about. So I feel for these guys, though. I'm sorry that these guys have to deal with this. Very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But it is true, though, that you don't want to become a stolen valor intern. Not good.
No,
we don't like it, folks.
Yeah, so head on over to theinsurgents.substack.com. Become a paid intern there for just $5 a month or $50 a year. I can't remember what we set the price at. But we really appreciate it. Whatever the price is for the year, whatever you want to do, we support you. And you keep the show sustainable, and you get access to our paid episodes like our one with Tom Williams earlier this week.
Yeah, it was really great stuff. And so is this conversation that we're just about to have with Dharna Noor. Please stick around for that. It was a really good talk. And Dharna is going to be joining the program right after this. Sometimes it's hard to know when it's informal chit chat or when it's like content. It's hard to know where that line is.
Yeah. But it's good. Thanks for having me. Also, sorry that I was late.
That's all right.
That's okay.
I took the extra couple minutes to get a quick game of Fortnite in.
Very quick.
Yeah.
10 minutes of Fortnite. I've never played Fortnite.
Oh, it's great.
Jordan got me addicted to it. I avoided it for a long time, and then I played it. I was like, okay, I'll participate in one of your little events. I'll do you a solid. I'll do you a favor. Bring my big social media influencer personality to your event. And then I just got hopelessly addicted to Fortnite in the process. And I'm still playing it to this day.
I know basically two things about the events that you can have on Fortnite, which is like that, like AOC and Ilhan Omar were a part of that one. And then also you can have like music festivals. That's so like in my head, all of Fortnite is basically just like Ilhan and 100 gex. And I don't know what else happened.
And you can go and floss dance in front of the MLK memorial as well.
That's a big part of it. Yeah. That was just, honest to God, like the funniest thing they've ever done. Hey, we're going to have this immersive walk through time event for Martin Luther King Day. But by the way, we're not going to disable emotes. So it's just like you could pick whatever skin you want. So I picked like Master Chief from Halo, and I go in there and I'm doing all these like TikTok dances in front of the MLK memorial.
Holy
just
shit.
Like, why is this a thing? Why am I allowed to do this?
Wow. They should have the next UN climate talks in Fortnite instead of
now we're
in
talking.
the UAE. Yeah.
Going into the metaverse.
There we go.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it would prevent all these dang private jets from flying over there.
It's true.
The big wigs.
Instead, we can have like super, carbon emitting data centers or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, much better.
Do some do some environment NFTs or something, Tyron. I'm just spitballing, but something like that.
The game fits the theme, though, because it is a game about dwindling natural resources. Yeah. And, you're running out of time and space because of a looming climate catastrophe. That's like the theme of the game.
That's right. I forgot. I remember when everyone first started playing it, there were all these, like, think pieces about how Fortnite was like a climate game. I forgot that part. Word. All right, maybe I should start playing Fortnite. It's like definitely not going to happen, but I feel like every time I'm on here, I'm like, I should start playing video games.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the main thing that we try to accomplish on this program is converting people into the gaming community.
Oh no, I'm ruined.
That's our main goal.
Like, flash forward in 3 years, Dharna just can't like hold a steady job because she's addicted to League of Legends.
Just in this
she's dark, like, I just got a
dark room. Yeah.
Yeah. She bought a gaming PC. She's also like mining Bitcoin on the side.
Yeah. There we go.
I'm like ambidextrous, and I don't know what, like a phone in one hand and the Switch in the other one on my gaming couch.
You got some Mountain Dew Code Red or something in there.
Yeah, exactly. Just like in an IV.
I love that for you.
Yeah,
I think that's something you should work on.
Thriving, moisturized, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. In my lane.
Oh, goodness.
Dharna, we're happy to have you back. The repeat guest, I think third time, maybe?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And it just, every time you're here to remind us that we're fucked. No one's doing enough about climate change. And, overall, really positive, uplifting conversation.
Yeah.
Well, it's good, too, because I've been depressed about too many other things lately, so I would like to be depressed about this thing now. It's been too long since I've thought about the impending doom that our generation and future generations is going to have to deal with. So I'm happy that we can do that today.
Oh, yeah. Glad to be able to help.
So this week, I guess the past couple weeks, we had the COP27 climate change conference in Egypt. All the world leaders and UN officials convened to solve all the problems, tackle climate change, and pat themselves on the back for doing a great job. Is that right? Are we out of the woods now?
Yeah, exactly. Everything's fixed. I will say, these summits never go remotely well, but within the framework of being a complete and utter shit, there were some things that happened, or really one thing in particular that happened at this COP that was actually a pretty big breakthrough. So sorry if you want to be just only depressed, but there were
I did see that there was some genuinely positive developments. Obviously, I don't think they abolished global capitalism or anything, but there are some positive takeaways definitely, it was just something, something to hang on to.
For sure.
What are they?
Well, so the one...
Let's get that out of the way first. We get the depressing stuff after.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I should say, too, it's all within the framework, again, of, we knew going into this that there was no... it's, actually impossible based on the structure of these climate summits for anything to, definitively come out of it, because it's all, non-binding, and it's all based on the countries that have the most power can basically control the entire conversation because it's all consensus based, whatever. Within that framework, the good thing that did happen is that countries agreed to create a fund for loss and damage, which is basically the losses and damage that are irreversible that countries, mostly poor countries, mostly global south countries, are already experiencing due to climate change. So people who have already lost their homes due to the devastating floods in Pakistan that we saw earlier this year, or people who have already lost their homes due to wildfires or things like this. There's a fund now. We don't know how much is going to be in it. We don't know who has to pay into it. The details, again, are very, very murky, but it's a pretty huge development considering that many rich countries, chiefly the US, were just staunchly opposed to doing basically anything on this for a long time. So one good thing. Again, muted, but good still.
We have these events time and time again, and all these different summits, and all these leaders convene. Okay, we're going to do this. They have these COP meetings or summits. That we of course have. The Paris Agreement in 2015, the Copenhagen Accord in 2009, Kyoto Protocol in 2005, and then you just look at emissions and trends in global temperature change, and it's just the line's just still going up. So it's how do you square, as a climate reporter and expert, how do you kind of square these things? It's okay, at least they're talking about it. You want to make yourself feel good about it, with the lack of what seems to be progress in the data. How do you kind of rationalize all of these things?
Yeah. Oh man. An expert. I don't know if I'm that for any of this, but I mean, for this specifically, I guess the reason that I think that even though this is such a tiny accomplishment compared to what's needed, maybe the reason to sort of think about it as something good at all is because it shows a bit of a shift in power. It shows that the nations that are the most affected already by climate change are starting to sort of band together and be no, fuck you, we have a voice, and will not just continue to basically be oppressed by the world's richest nations. So I think that that's a positive trend that could mean something in the future. But you're right. I mean, yeah, if you look at the lines, like emissions continue to rise. They're rising less quickly than they were before. But like, obviously what we need is for them to decline very rapidly. I don't know. I mean, like, honestly, it seems like the changes that are actually, we know that like the changes that are actually needed are on a scale that, first of all, we've basically never seen globally, like in a level of international cooperation that we've never seen globally. So we're up against like, you know, basically everything works against this. But we also know that like, you know, the people who we are relying on to make those changes have every incentive not to, or to like, basically make changes that might be aligned with climate action, but could be really, really horrible, you know, like, investing in sort of like scary tech solutions, or like, you know, just moving over to an equally sort of, maybe we have like a new renewable energy economy, but maybe it's like equally sort of exploitive and horrible. So we know that like the incentives are not there for the most powerful people to change everything. So I think that with that said, anything that can sort of build the kind of power that might start to work against that, I think is a win, even though like in the grand scale of thing, it's nowhere near the scale of anything that's needed. That was like the most horribly sad way to say that it's a good thing ever, but you know.
It was interesting and illuminating seeing like the right's reaction to some of these developments as well. Well, Brandon is now having this $1 billion slush fund for these developing countries, and it just continues to just you know, astound me, the level of profound ignorance that these folks have. Not only denying that climate change even exists or is happening, or our role, you know, here in the West in extremely disproportionately contributing to that, but ignoring the ways that these developing nations are already experiencing the fallout of this and will continue to bear the brunt of it much more than we will as the years go on. We're already seeing some impacts, but nowhere near the level of chaos that we're going to see in a lot of these developing nations, and the massive migrant caravans and things like that are sure to ensue from the devastating impacts of the sea level changes and all these different elements of climate change. So I guess it shouldn't be surprising, but I just continue to be sickened by the right's total refusal to act on this in any way, either domestically or internationally, and framing the idea that we should be helping global South countries that are becoming the victims of this because we contributed to it, we created it, and just framing that as being some kind of like slush fund or handout or something. You know, it's fucking enraging.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely, and also I feel like for like powerful right-wing people, like, you know, you have some kind of stake in the game. Like if you are benefiting from like the continued existence of like the fossil fuel industry, okay, you have a material incentive to like do something horribly destructive. But for like ordinary people who like lean right, I also think that it comes from this idea that like that is coming for you too, right? Like maybe, you know, you're not going to see the same level of devastation right now in the United States that we're seeing in, you know, a place like the Maldives or Pakistan or something like this. But like, if you are a right-wing person who lives in like, I don't know, Florida or like California or whatever, like it comes, I don't know, I feel like it also comes from this idea that it's like, oh, well, they would never let this happen to me. Like, no, dude, they will let that happen to you. Like the second that it's like more politically convenient to not like pretend to be aligned with your material interests, they will. So I don't know, like it just seems like even if it's like not for altruistic reasons, even if it's purely just like, you know what, I got to take care of my own self, it kind of seems like, well, yeah, I mean, don't you want a thing to happen that would show like some level of interest in also taking care of your climate future?
Well, you know what though? It's like, I sometimes think like, well, of course, when Florida's underwater, they'll start to realize the seriousness of this. Now I'm not so sure, especially in the wake of COVID and what we've seen. Now I kind of feel like Florida in general is going to be underwater. There's going to be these right-wing people like the damn libs are trying to send rescue boats. They're just part of a globalist conspiracy or something. Yeah. And they're going to be just sitting there in their fucking attics. You know,
it's really
scary that it's going on.
It's scary.
You know?
Yeah. And also like there will be, liberals in New York being like, oh, you know what? They all deserved it because, exactly. Like they deserved it because they were climate deniers. And it's like, no,
there's also people that live there that are not climate deniers and don't want to drown in boiling seawater. So yeah, we should pay attention to that.
Sure.
I'm curious if there was any traction on coal. Like that is obviously a big issue here. Manchin has it made it unclear whether or not he's going to support the nomination of David Crane to be the Undersecretary for Energy and Infrastructure, because Manchin's the chair of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate, and it's specifically over his stance on coal. It's tough because he's quote a Democrat and he's in the caucus, but he breaks with most Democrats on that issue, and Republicans definitely want to increase coal production and output, and that's a issue for I think Indonesia and China to an extent.
Definitely.
Have you what was I did see there were some headlines around phasing out or like slowing down our use and reliance on coal globally, but it seemed to be in rhetoric only. Did I miss anything concrete around coal?
So basically what happened regarding coal at COP27 is just like recommitting to the stuff that was already agreed to at COP26 last year. So basically like another sort of big topic of conversation at this year's climate talks and like several before this was basically whether or not countries are going to agree to make a plan to phase out of fossil fuels. They, surprise, surprise, did not agree to even just starting to phase out fossil fuels. But what they did agree to is accelerating efforts towards the phase down of unabated coal power. So first of all, phase down, like not phase out, phase down. And then second, unabated. So what that really means, I think probably is like, yeah, you can have coal as long as you pair it with some carbon capture and storage, which is a technology that like maybe one day, but like just currently does not exist at scale, has not been proven to work, like doesn't, really like do anything about some of the other sort of scarier local impacts of extraction. So there's that. And then again, also like, yes, phase down of unabated coal power, but nothing about oil and gas. So I don't know. I mean, that could mean something. That could mean like, a decrease in coal subsidies. It could mean that fewer coal projects get approved, less coal funding like internationally. But if that is replaced with oil and gas, that's not really much of a solution at all. I think especially, right now there's like a lot of talk around gas and not to get ahead of myself or whatever, but like the agreement made at COP27 also included this like weird little phrase about low emissions energy, like it endorsed low emissions energy, which people think probably means more gas. So, a bit of progress on coal, but nothing that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, it's also kind of hard to take some of these climate commitments seriously, especially from the United States, especially given the way that, talking about fracking and the way that the Biden administration, despite initially kind of having some language about that, kind of eventually did a about face on that, a 180 on fracking, particularly to appeal to like voters in Pennsylvania and places where fracking is major industry. Yeah. There's also this whole element of the coming energy crisis in Western Europe as a result of the war between Russia and Ukraine, where you have America kind of encouraging Western European countries to reject Russian gas that they get from a pipeline relatively cheaply and replace that with fracked gas from the United States, which is significantly more, it's environmentally damaging to the places where it's extracted from. It takes more energy to transport it to these places, and it's leading to an increase in emissions and an increase in the usage of these environmentally hazardous practices, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Interestingly, I think, a clear sign of this, of like the sort of push to increase gas development, and gas exports, especially from the U.S., was that the U.S., for basically in kind of a surprising move, the U.S. was down at COP27 to get behind a phase down of unabated fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. I talked to some like sort of climate justice expert folks who basically said, yeah, of course they're into unabated gas being phased down because that means that like you can just continue to export the gas, but the abating part is up to you. So like here, Europe, you can have gas from the United States, but if you want to comply with with the UN climate agreement, then you better figure out how to get rid of the emissions from it. That's not our job. It's your gas, So there's a lot of, I think, more renewable power for me and not for thee kind of thing. And also, just like a huge expansion of the, a thing that we're somehow still calling a transition fuel or a bridge fuel that's showed very clearly not to be anything that we should be using as one of those.
One of the things I saw also was that there were a ton of fossil fuel lobbyists. Over 600 fossil fuel lobbyists were there, which was from Global Witness reported that was a 25% increase from last year.
Yes.
Could you talk about how why they're even allowed there, and also just kind of the setting? And the next one's going to be in Dubai. I mean, this isn't really like a place that's hostile to oil. This is a region largely that thrives on production of oil. So, could you talk about just that influence that fossil fuel lobbyists had over this conference and kind of the setting at large for these?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the UN climate talks have never been a place to seriously discuss cutting ties with the fossil fuel industry, because the fossil fuel industry is always sort of all over these UN talks. And last year, the organizers of the conference kind of made this big to-do about trying to cut ties with them. They made a show of banning oil companies from officially sponsoring the COP27 or COP26, I guess it was last year. But there's no rules against bringing fossil fuel lobbyists as part of national delegations. So if Canada wants to, it can say, oh, well, we have folks from oil companies here, but they're delegates on our behalf. And then also they have a bunch of industry groups there who have their own delegations. And that means that if you're part of a national delegation, so in the Canada instance, you can actually be a part of the official official talks. You can go into the sort of summit rooms that are private and kind of hidden away from civil society, from the kind of activist groups and stuff that show up. So you have this just kind of wild level of access. And then even if you're not part of a national delegation, you can still kind of whisper in officials' ears in the hallways, or wine and dine them and say oh, well, I'll give you this if you give me that. So it's not, not surprising, I think. Although, I mean, it is pretty wild. I wrote about that report too, that the report that showed that there was a 25% increase in fossil fuel lobbyists from last year. And there were way fewer people that attended these talks than last year. So that's an increase in fossil fuel lobbyists, despite the fact that fewer people overall actually went.
I guess another thing that has frustrated me about the U.S. response to climate change, whether it's at COP or whether it's with Biden's historic climate package that they talk endlessly about, is, and Elon Musk is a central figure in this as well, is the doubling and tripling down on car culture.
Yes. Yeah.
And the idea that through EVs and through zero emission vehicles, we can keep car culture in place, but we can be in green and environmentally friendly. This is a completely fictional idea. It's not true. It's a lie. It's something that if we want to have a genuine, a real response to the threat of climate change that we're all facing, that's going to be something that Western governments, in America and Canada and elsewhere that have been so heavily dependent on car culture are going to have to reckon with. And there's going to need to be, and so far this has been completely absent from any climate action, whether it's in, America or Canada or elsewhere.
Totally.
But this an investment in rail, in transit, public transit. This is going to have to happen if there's going to be any kind of real response. Instead, we're doubling down on car culture. We're allowing grifters and con men like Elon Musk to sell us on this idea of the Hyperloop, which is just a way to stall and completely avoid investing in the existing infrastructure that's already there for rail and transit and that kind of stuff.
Totally.
This to me is just something that our governments in the West are going to have to eventually reckon with, this idea that we cannot have a legitimate solution or a legitimate climate action while also trying to maintain this fiction that we can still carry on our culture of automobile worship. It's completely not feasible.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar, I think, in some ways to the talk of like the carbon capture for fossil fuel energy stuff. Like, it's this idea
not a real
that,
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, we need some stuff. Like, it would be great if there were some like we need there to be such a thing as electric vehicles because like, school buses exist and things like this. But like, I mean, solving the bigger problem would be it's a way bigger problem than just replacing cars. You have to like change the way that neighborhoods are designed. You have to make it so that people are able to actually like access public transit and are, able to like live closer to the grocery store and things like this, in the same way that like, remaking the grid requires like just kind of massive changes that it's not in like powerful people's best interest to make. So, instead we get these sort of solutions that are like, oh, well, it's this very like, I don't know, carbon fetishism thing where it's like, oh, well, if we just get rid of the part of it that's emitting the carbon, then, everything will be fine, as though the majority of cars that are going on roads when you invest in roads are not still spewing out emissions. And also as though it wouldn't just be better to have like, a world where people don't need to make horribly high car payments and like, commute hours and hours to work and shit like this. Like it's so clear that there is a better version out there. And yet the thing that we're getting is just like, oh, replace the shitty thing with, a quote unquote clean version of the shitty thing.
We're a few months past the Inflation Reduction Act. And, that was championed by Democrats as this historic climate action that no other country has undertaken. And, there was some tinkering around the edges and some pushback, and obviously later in the year that Manchin was not successful on. But he was, he was trying to do this permitting reform for pipelines. And we're probably going to see that come back maybe later this year.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. What should people understand about this permitting reform push from Manchin, his dirty deal, as a lot of people like to call it, and the effect that would have on what I think is a moderate step in the right direction? It might not be the best thing to do, but it's a step in the right direction. But how the effect that would have on the climate provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yeah, I mean, the permitting reform legislation thing, I think I'll just maybe start by saying like the divisions that this sowed among sort of like the climate world were very, I don't know, like in some ways kind of surprising and in some ways just very telling. Basically, this would be, it was like a side deal that like Democrats agreed, like, oh, Manchin, if you support the IRA, then we'll give you, it's so funny to me still that it's called the IRA, but if you support the IRA, then you can have this. I don't know. I mean, the
big support of the IRA over here.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just never get over like, Biden and Nancy Pelosi and shit being like, we have to support the IRA. Yeah, it rules. But so the permitting reform legislation thing, it's like a mixed bag, right? Because it is true that we need a reform for like we need to be able to build a lot more stuff, and we need to have a very serious conversation about transmission. And Manchin's bill basically posits that the way to do that is like fast track infrastructure through environmental reforms or through environmental regulations, basically. Like, don't let people use the courts or like, kind of existing environmental processes to say that they have an issue with like energy infrastructure that's getting built in their neighborhoods, which is scary. And also use this as a way to fast track the Mountain Valley Pipeline that he's like been a long time staunch supporter of, and opening the door to kind of fast track some other fossil fuel projects. So, I mean, I guess the things to look for in the next permitting bill will be, one, what does it mean for the Mountain Valley Pipeline? What does it mean for other fossil fuel projects? And two, does it include the kind of safeguards that can protect people from like, sometimes genuinely dangerous and scary infrastructure that could get built around them? There's been a lot of sort of I don't know, scapegoating of the National Environmental Protection Act. Like, there's just been a lot of talk of like, oh, well, the reason that the United States doesn't build anything is because of these damn environmental regulations, as though that is really the issue, I guess. That is, I think, very frustrating. At the same time, we do need to have a very serious talk about like transmission and, building more things that allow people to actually use more renewable energy when we bring it online. So I don't know. I think looking out for what the bill means for fossil fuels and what the bill means for like the people who will live near energy and other infrastructure is probably the place to look.
Also worth mentioning as well, when we're talking about the inequities and the issues with the so-called sort of historic climate legislation, is that you can't also, like, not only can you not have a bold, meaningful climate solution that doubles down on car culture, you also can have a bold climate change solution that doubles down on the military and has this ever expanding military budget and ever expanding military presence around the world, which is, I believe, the number one emitter of carbon.
The U.S. military
these are mutually exclusive.
No, I mean 100%. Yeah, oh man, this is like a whole other conversation that I could talk about for hours. Also, but yeah, I mean, this is this scary thing about the U.S. framing climate change as like a national security threat is that allows for the continuation of this thing, right? Like the U.S. is the greatest historical emitter, and currently the U.S. military is the number one consumer of fossil fuels and the number one emitter of greenhouse gases. So like the two are just not compatible. There are people out there who are like, and that's why we need to cut the carbon emissions from the military and continue to grow it. But I think that
green the military.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which again is, that's like another carbon capture EVs sort of like, why would you not just do the obvious good thing? But we know the reasons why. And we know why they're not doing the obvious good thing. So
you see scenes like in Hawaii, in the United States military in Hawaii, poisoning natural drinking water sources, that indigenous Hawaiians have to rely on to live.
Yeah.
It's not just emitting carbon all over the world where the U.S. military is located, but it's engaging in these kind of practices and destroying local environmental infrastructure and destroying drinking water reservoirs. And it's not just for this reason that the United States military should be getting out of Hawaii and should be getting out of Japan and Korea and all the various other places where it's
Iraq,
set up shop, Iraq, around the world. But it's one of the important reasons, definitely.
No, 100%. Yeah, totally. And like, I mean, and the idea that there is such thing as a militarism that does not kind of stoke that kind of environmental injustice is just like, I don't know. I think pretty absurd,
I guess
the two go very much hand in hand.
Yeah, I guess that's the reason that I get cynical about. You can say, well, it's great that they're agreeing to set up this fund for the global South and these developing nations that are victimized by climate change, but it's kind of meaningless when you're continuing the very same practices that are causing that impact in the first place. You kind of have to do both of those things. You have to stop doing the activity that's causing the problem, and you have to support these nations, these developing countries, as they deal with these cataclysmic consequences of it.
100%. I mean, and like, literally the IPCC, like top climate scientists, top mainstream climate scientists also have basically said that like, colonialism has historically been and is continually a leading driver of climate change. And it's not a coincidence, right, that like, the nations that are often the most affected by climate change are the ones that have these sort of histories of being colonized and of imperialism, like ongoing imperialism. And so I think, in two ways, it's like, continuing to fuel militarism and continuing to like invest in fossil fuel infrastructure means that there will be more climate change, and that's really bad for these global South countries. But also it like kind of instills this global like power structure where those nations have like a smaller ability to sort of, stand up for themselves and like and not to say that like, nations that are like on the front lines of climate change in the global South have like perfectly, beautifully democratic governments. Like it's not like an either or thing, but it is true that like, and again, climate scientists themselves say that like that sort of power imbalance is also a driver of climate change. So yeah, in two ways, there's not really a way to have to have that continued investment in the military or in fossil fuels and kind of have like anything resembling climate justice globally. It's not really possible.
Rob, did you have anything else?
I think we're good now. Yeah, I've got my sanctimonious rants out of the way on this, but yeah.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Dharna, I'm wondering, have you been watching the World Cup?
No, I have not been.
Are you a sports head?
Oh my God,
sports ball?
I'm not. I keep saying that I'm gonna get into sports, and then I keep saying I'm gonna get into video games. But no, I have not been watching the World Cup, and I don't really watch sports. I feel like I sound like the most boring person ever.
How dare you?
Yeah.
But I did
see
stuff.
But I mean, you mentioned that our dear friends in Saudi Arabia, were victorious. So
those are our allies.
Yeah.
Wait, actually, that is something that I think is worth mentioning in the climate and oil conversation. Like the Saudis have like just pushed Biden around on all of this what am I? My mind just went blank on like the production issue, because it is an element, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And they pushed him around, and like as he asked for increased production, instead they said, "Oh, actually, we're going to cut production."
Yeah, because we want your political opponents to win, and they're just like, "Okie dokie, Jack." Like,
so back and forth, they go back and forth on this stuff, and then like Biden keeps trying to appease him, and he gives MBS legal immunity.
Yes.
In the Khashoggi lawsuit, and then like a story comes out early in the day yesterday. The Saudis or OPEC Plus is now considering an increase in production, so people naturally jump to the conclusion, they gave MBS what he wants, they're going to increase production. And then later in the day, MBS is like, or OPEC Plus was like, no, this is not true. The story's not true.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they're like, no Wall Street Journal, it's all fake. I know. I'm very curious about what the hell is going on.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's truly. I mean, it's really like reality show levels of like unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, especially just days after, right? Biden was like, we got to protect MBS from the Khashoggi lawsuit. It's just, yeah. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
I mean, it is embarrassing, especially considering the level, and like not just when you talk about Khashoggi, but just the endless diplomatic cover we've been providing. I'm talking about both Canada and the United States here for the Saudis as they carry on this genocidal campaign in Yemen, one of the worst human rights atrocities in the world, while we simultaneously lecture other countries around the world about human rights at the same time, I should say.
Of course. What? We're not the like grand spreaders of democracy? What are you talking about?
What? And arming them, like literally selling them the weapons that they need to carry on these kinds of atrocities. And they still, just with the complete lack of respect that they show for Biden or for Canada, when Canada famously very politely asked them to maybe tone down on some of the human rights groups and imprisoning human rights activists. They literally threatened to do 9/11 to Canada.
Yes.
And we were like, we're sorry, Saudi Arabia, won't happen again. We stuck our nose where it didn't belong.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember if we were recording when we were saying that the next UN climate talks are going to be in the UAE, but like that will just be a whole other. I mean, obviously, this year in Egypt there were many rightful concerns about like how to have climate talks when you're also concerned about like the abuses of like prisoners and things. I think that same dynamic will be very present next year. And, with this sort of added layer of like the, U.S. relationship with like the sort of volatile oil market, I think it'll be interesting to say the least.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Saudi soccer team, though. That was definitely the second most exciting Saudi Arabia related event that I've ever woken up to.
I'm sad that I didn't watch it now. I'm going to go back and watch it, and I'm going to find someone to watch a replay with me.
I was telling Rob, I hate Lionel Messi to begin with. And just like seeing him lose, even if it is to the Saudis, is like pretty funny. But I'm shocked. I'm shocked that Saudi Arabia beat Argentina. That's just crazy to me.
Is this? Yeah. Okay. I know like basically nothing about this, but I thought that it was surprising, and I'm glad to know that I was right. I at least know
it's totally
thing.
surprising.
Yeah. Okay, that was
they were not
like a crazy upset, right? Okay, cool. I'm glad to.
Yeah, they were not expected to win.
What happened? You know, you're gonna answer this question, and I'm just gonna have so many other ones because I'm gonna have so little.
Yeah,
idea
you can just make up a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Their third forward engaged with the classic eagle technique that just making stuff up. I don't actually know about soccer either, so
it was just that Saudi Arabia scored more goals than Argentina.
Yeah,
that's it.
The John Madden explanation. The one side are going to score more goals. They're guaranteed to win the game.
That's all. That's it.
Wow, stunning. Incredible. In a stunning upset, Saudi Arabia scored more goals.
That's right. Very cool.
That's our sports analysis. Actually, I'm more excited from the Ohio State-Michigan game this weekend. I don't know if either of you guys care, but I'm fucking over the moon for that. I can't wait.
Sorry.
Nothing from you guys?
Sorry.
Not so much, no. I'm just an NBA guy, and I'm doing a bit of World Cup just to kind of check it out, and that's all I got.
All right, that's
and
fair.
I'll watch the Super Bowl.
I love
mostly for
yelling
the
and drinking beer. Yeah. Nachos. I love nachos. So
I
should get into sports.
You're a sports
fan.
fan.
May make a sports fan of you yet. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Also Fortnite.
Yeah. That's also a sport as well. Gaming. Well, Dharna, this has been wonderful.
Dharna.
Thanks for coming back on the program and breaking this stuff down for us.
Me. Yeah, thanks a lot. It's always great to be here. I feel like this was particularly goofy. I hope that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy. So that usually we keep the really depressing stuff for the end, and this time we get the lighthearted chit chat for the end. We should do that more. You leave leave people feeling good instead of feeling horrible, which is what we normally do. That's the normal Insurgents.
I think the way that this started is that, Jordan, you were just like, so are either of you, so Dharna, are you a sports fan? Mm-hmm. Perfect closer. Yeah. I love it.
Yep.
I'll do that more often.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. This was somehow fun, even though this is what we were talking about. So thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah, of course. Where can people find you and your work?
I'm on, who knows by the time, whatever. Anyway, I'm on Twitter. I'm Dharna Noor on Twitter. And I also write for the Boston Globe. And you can find all of my work there at globe.com/climate.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to The Insurgents. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can find us on iTunes or Spotify or at Substack, theinsurgents.substack.com. You'll get the latest episodes delivered straight to your inbox as well as our newsletter. On Twitter, we are at InsurgentsPod. Tweet at us, harass Ken in our replies, and then send us your hate mail to theinsurgentspod@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening.